Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're taking on self-improvement, but maybe not in the way you might think.
Yeah, taking a look at some sources that don't exactly scream self-help, right?
Exactly. We've got financial advice, some tech stuff.
Even some current events sprinkled in there.
The goal is to see if we can actually extract some actionable advice for self-improvement, from these seemingly unrelated sources.
I love it. A little bit of unconventional wisdom.
So let's get started. First up, we've got this video on the 10 best stocks to own for life. Now,
I know what you're thinking.
what does this have to do with self-improvement?
Right. On the surface, yeah, not much.
Let's stick with us.
Because when you dig into it, there are actually some interesting parallels. The video highlights stocks like Coca-Cola and Apple.
Yeah, those classic long-term holds.
And it emphasizes this idea of resilience and growth. That got me thinking, what if we applied that same buy and hold mentality to ourselves?
Invest in yourself for the long haul.
Exactly. Instead of always chasing those quick fixes and short-term gains.
Which, let's be honest, we all do sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. But what if we approach personal development with that same patience? Like, imagine if you invested in Coca-Cola and just woke up 20 years later richer.
The video actually uses that example.
Yeah. And it's a pretty compelling picture. Think about applying that to personal growth. Where do you want to be 20 years from now? What can you invest in yourself today to get there?
Okay, that's a pretty cool way to look at it.
Huh.
But investing always has risks, right? Things don't always go as planned. So how does that translate to self-improvement?
That's a great question. I think the key takeaway there is being discerning. Just like you wouldn't blindly throw money at any stock.
You got to do your research.
Right. Assess the potential downsides. And be willing to adapt if a strategy isn't working. Recognize when to cut your losses, so to speak.
So it's not about just having blind faith. It's about being smart and adaptable like a good investor.
Exactly. Speaking of adaptation, let's shift gears to this Blender 4.3 update.
This one got me a little excited. I'm always
Yeah.
fascinated by how software evolves,
I saw you geeking out over the new features in your notes.
especially those faster sculpting tools and the brush assets. It's like the developers are constantly listening to the needs of users, always improving.
And that's a great parallel to personal development, isn't it? The world around us is constantly changing. If we want to stay relevant,
We got to keep learning, keep adapting.
think about it. If you were still using the very first version of Blender,
Oh, man.
you'd be missing out on so much. It's the same with us. If we cling to outdated beliefs or resist new knowledge, we're limiting our own potential.
So we got to be lifelong learners, always upgrading our internal software.
Exactly. Always looking for new updates, new ways to improve our skills and our thinking.
So is this about picking up totally new skills or changing our perspectives?
I think it's a bit of both. Learning new technical skills like a new language or a
Right.
software program, but also expanding our understanding of the world, challenging our assumptions, developing new ways of thinking.
So it's growth on multiple levels, practical skills and mental flexibility.
Like we're constantly expanding our toolkit for navigating life.
I like that. Okay, now for something that seems even further removed from self-improvement, Valve's Proton and its impact on Linux gaming. This one, I gotta admit, threw me for a loop,
Yeah, on the surface, it seems pretty niche.
but actually has a powerful message about problem solving and perseverance. So for a long time, Linux users,
Yeah, I remember this.
they faced a big obstacle. Not enough games, most of the popular titles.
Windows only.
Exactly. Then comes Proton. It basically allowed Windows games to run on Linux systems. Problem solved, right?
So what's the self-improvement angle here?
Well, it wasn't just a technical achievement. It was a community effort. Linux users coming together, sharing knowledge, troubleshooting, contributing to the solution.
The power of collective action.
Exactly. And that speaks to something crucial about self-improvement. We don't have to go it alone. We can lean on others, learn from their experiences, and draw strength from a shared sense of purpose.
You know, it's like that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
I love that. So find your community, your mentors,
Even just a supportive friend.
because tackling challenge is always easier when you've got people in your corner.
Absolutely. We're social creatures after all. We thrive on connection. And sometimes those breakthroughs come when we open ourselves up to the wisdom and support of others.
I'm really digging this deep dive. Who knew we could get so much self-improvement wisdom from such diverse sources?
It's amazing how inspiration can come from anywhere if you're open to it. And I think we've only just scratched the surface.
Okay, let's keep going. What's up next on our list for today? Okay, now let's switch gears a bit. We've got some info on the Apple Watch Series 10, specifically that new sleep apnea detection feature.
Yeah, this one caught my eye too. On the surface, it's a health feature, but
Right, but how does it tie into self-improvement?
it's all about self-awareness, right? That Apple Watch is gathering data about your sleep, and that data can be super valuable.
It's like having a tiny little health coach right there on your wrist.
Exactly. And it made me think, this idea of tracking and monitoring can be applied to so many areas of self-improvement. Are we paying attention to our habits? Are we tracking our progress towards goals?
It's easy to just cruise through life, not really noticing those patterns and behaviors that shape our experiences.
But when we start collecting data, whether it's through a device, journaling, whatever, we get these insights.
We can see ourselves more clearly.
Exactly. But then the key is, what do we do with that information?
Use it to make positive changes, right?
And the data is only useful if we act on it, identify areas for improvement, set goals, adjust our routines,
It's like we become scientists of our own lives, gathering data, analyzing it, and then tweaking our approach for better outcomes.
I love that. It's a data-driven approach to self-improvement.
Okay, now for something completely different. You sent over this document about developing a buyer's journey.
Ah, yes. The marketing framework.
And I'm thinking, what does this have to do with becoming better versions of ourselves?
Well, this document really emphasizes that the first step in any buyer's journey is identifying the problem.
Okay.
Before even looking for solutions, potential buyers need to understand their needs, their pain points.
So are you saying we should do the same thing for our own lives?
Exactly. Before we jump into self-improvement strategies, we got to take a step back. What are our challenges? What's holding us back?
So we need to become our own customer, figure out what we're trying to buy in terms of personal growth.
Yes. Define that problem statement so we can start looking for the right solutions.
So before we even think about action, we need to pause and reflect.
Exactly. Be intentional, be strategic with our self-improvement efforts, not just randomly trying things and hoping for the best.
This deep dive is full of surprises. I never would have thought marketing principles could apply to personal growth.
It's funny how these connections pop up, a fresh perspective from a totally different field.
Okay, let's keep going. What else do we have on our list?
We have some notes on the Caliber 7.21 update. This is a popular ebook management software.
Yeah, I saw you highlighted those new audiobook features.
I know you're a fan of audiobooks.
Big fan. It's the best way to learn on the go, commuting, exercising, whatever.
Like passive knowledge absorption, right?
Totally. And this update just made it even easier to manage and listen.
And that got me thinking about the importance of diverse learning methods. It doesn't always have to be books or lectures.
Right, podcasts, documentaries.
Even conversations with interesting people.
It's all about finding what works best for you.
Some people are visual learners. Some prefer auditory. Some learn best by doing. So mix it up. Find those methods that click for you.
Always be curious. Explore different avenues. Keep learning.
Speaking of learning, we also need to be mindful of where we're getting our information. You sent over this article about Russian disinformation using American voices.
Yeah, that was a bit unsettling.
It's a reminder that not everything we see or hear is true or reliable, right?
We got to develop our own internal BS detector.
Exactly. Question assumptions, evaluate the evidence. If it sounds too good to be true.
It probably is.
Right. And this applies to self-improvement advice, too. Critically evaluate the methods, the strategies. Make sure they align with your values and they're likely to actually work.
Don't just blindly follow the trends or the gurus. Do your own research.
Absolutely. We need to be the architects of our own self-improvement journeys. Be skeptical, think critically, and question everything.
Man, this deep dive is really making me rethink my whole approach to self-improvement.
It's not just about following rules or techniques.
It's about being mindful, being discerning, and taking ownership of our own growth.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, what else do we have to explore?
Next up, we have these Evergoods and Gorups bags. You mentioned they're known for their quality and sustainability.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for well-made stuff that lasts.
Same here. But how does this connect to self-improvement?
It made me think about this idea of alignment, making sure our actions match our values.
So you're saying our purchasing decisions can reflect our commitment to self-improvement?
Absolutely. If we're trying to be better versions of ourselves, shouldn't that extend to how we consume? Supporting companies that prioritize sustainability.
It's like voting with our wallets.
Exactly. And it's not just about the environment. It's fair labor practices, responsible sourcing, being more mindful about what we buy.
Making choices that reflect the kind of world we want to live in.
And the kind of person we want to be.
It's about refining our own personal compass.
Making sure our actions are leading us toward a fulfilling and meaningful life.
Wow, this deep dive is really expanding my definition of self-improvement.
It's not just about individual growth.
It's about our relationships, our communities, our impact on the world.
It's a holistic view of growth.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today, from stocks to sustainability. What final insights can we leave our listener with? So we've journeyed from stocks and 3D modeling to disinformation campaigns and sustainable bags.
Quite the eclectic mix.
But through it all, we've seen that self-improvement doesn't have to fit into a neat little box.
It's about cultivating that growth mindset
Embracing those challenges, turning them into learning experiences.
and making sure our actions line up with our values.
We've learned about long-term thinking, that buy and hold mentality, not just for investments, but for ourselves.
The importance of adaptation, staying flexible, just like that Blender software.
Recognizing that we've got to be continuous learners in this constantly evolving world.
And we saw how the Linux gaming community came together to overcome those limitations with Proton.
It's a powerful reminder that we don't have to do it all alone. Find your community, find your support system.
We even got some wisdom from a marketing framework, that buyer's journey, figuring out what our personal problem statement is.
Before we jump into solutions.
Exactly. And of course, the Apple Watch reminding us about tracking data and using it to make informed decisions.
And then those ever-goods and Gorak bags.
Highlighting sustainable choices.
Aligning our actions with our values.
This deep dive has really been something else.
Yeah, it's amazing how inspiration can pop up in the most unexpected places.
If you're willing to look for it.
So, as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from this?
For me, it's that self-improvement is so multifaceted.
Yeah, it's woven into every part of our lives.
It's not just about checking off goals or mastering skills.
It's about cultivating curiosity, that constant learning,
Making conscious decisions.
recognizing that our personal growth is connected to everything.
Our relationships, communities, the choices we make.
It's a lifelong journey.
An ongoing process of becoming our most authentic selves.
So, to our listeners, as you go forward, think about this.
How can you take what we've explored today and integrate it into your daily life?
What small, sustainable changes can you start making right now?
To nurture your growth and create a life that is both fulfilling and impactful.
Remember, self-improvement isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Embrace the journey and enjoy discovering your full potential.